Good morning and welcome to Creative Conversations. I'm delighted to have Geoff Rowe with me today. Geoff, you are the founder of the Big Difference Company and director of Leicester Comedy Festival. How are you, sir?
I'm all right. It's a bit weird at the moment, I think, for everybody. But yeah, I'm fine. I'm doing all right. Had a nice couple of days over the weekend in the sunshine, so that was nice. Yeah, I'm doing all right. I'm getting used to it, I think, is the answer.
It's sort of getting easier in a weird way, I think, the lockdown, isn't it? Now that we've kind of got into a bit of a new norm. And you're right, the sun has helped because we can sit outside and enjoy the sunshine a bit.
Well, we can. An awful lot of people, of course, can't. So I feel very sorry for them. But yeah, it's. I think we are getting used to it, really, and adjusting, and it's incredible. I was looking back the other day over some emails that I was sending just before lockdown happened, and it seems like a different world, really. But I think we're going to have to get used to it for a long time to come, I think.
Yeah, I think there's no quick way out, is there, really? I think the rest of 2020 is going to be a similar kind of adjustment, isn't it, I think, unfortunately?
Yeah, I think so. How about you? How are you coping?
I'm all right. Yeah, the first couple of weeks I found it quite difficult, if I'm honest. I do film, I do video production, so a lot of my work was actually cancelled or postponed pretty much indefinitely because we couldn't get the crews together to do the job. So from a professional level, first few weeks are quite hard. And my partner, she works in retail, but her store's still open, so actually she's had to continue to go to work, and that's been really, really stressful. But now that we're kind of, like I said, we're sort of 5 weeks in, I think I've adjusted. I'm sort of getting used to kind of how things are, and finding the new norm, as it were. So yeah,
sure.
So you did the comedy festival obviously in February, and that was before lockdown. So in a way, lucky that it came a month or two before the storm that came for us all.
You're not the first to have said that. So many people have said it's all right for you. You're so lucky. And in some respects, we are, I suppose. I mean, I do feel very much for those people who've been working for however long, a year, more, less than a year, for their events, and then they've had to pull them. I would be absolutely gutted if, for lots of reasons, if we'd had to cancel or amend Leicester Comedy Festival. So yeah, I suppose luck is a good word to use. We were very fortunate that we could run it in February as it was planned. Really, there was no amendments made to it whatsoever.
Yeah, because I think obviously at that stage, we weren't really aware to the full extent of the situation. So, full steam ahead. Did the festival go well? I didn't actually get a chance myself to go into any comedy this year. I was a bit disappointed. But how did it go this year?
Well, I feel like I should end the call now, Lee, in that case. Yeah, it was great.
Sorry, mate.
That's all right, don't worry. It was really good. I mean, the festival grows every year and it gets bigger every year. And my friends take the mickey out of me because every year I say it's bigger and better than the previous year, but that's the truth. It generally does. Well, it definitely gets bigger. Whether it gets better I'm not the person to judge that, really. But it was great. We had more venues than ever before. We had loads of new comedians come to the festival, which is really exciting. That never was the case when we first set up the festival. We might talk about that in a bit. But and I think the other thing is, well, two other things. One is the number of famous people that support what we do and support the festival, particularly this year, was just fantastic. And also the amount of national coverage we got. We had a whole episode of the Radio 4 programme Front Row that people might know came from Leicester Comedy Festival and talked about Leicester Comedy Festival, which was just astonishing, really. So I guess that's a long answer to your question, but it went really well, and people still really seem to support the festival in lots of different ways, which is fantastic.
The profile, well, just from an outsider's perspective, someone who lives in Leicester, someone who sees the comedy festival on every single year, it seems to be very well established and very well renowned now. So I'm personally not surprised to hear that's happening in terms of the exposure that it's getting now. I guess it wasn't always that way. Did you start the festival? You started the festival in '94, is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
And has there been peaks and troughs along the way? I'm assuming so. It can't have all just been upwards rise to where it is now, or has it? Has it been a steady rise?
No, not in the slightest. I mean, it's the festival punches above its weight massively, really. So, you know, we get famous people come to the festival, and we get in national media, and it's all very exciting and show busy. You know, the reality is it's still run by, I think there's six or seven, I think, part-time staff that run the festival, which compared to a lot of festivals is quite a lot. But it's not many people. It's run by a charity called Big Difference Company. You know, we always laugh when people phone up and want to speak to our marketing department or our finance department. I mean, it's just us that do it, really, with a lot of support from a lot of people. So no, I mean, it's been and continues to be hard to keep it going, and I'm hesitating because I'm really conscious, particularly right now, there's an awful lot of people have much harder jobs than I do, or possibly you do. You know, I'm not don't work in a hospital or a care home or somewhere, but it is hard, and to get the money together and to keep the thing going every year is difficult. We get lots of support that I've already kind of mentioned about, but it's difficult to keep it going. So yeah, I mean, I think 27 years we've done it this year. Over those years, there's been numerous low points, mainly linked to money, where I and maybe some other people at the end of the festival sit there, I mean, literally with a pile of invoices on this side and not enough money on that side, and just thinking, well, what are we going to do? It's been enormously difficult, but I think though that support and those partnerships that we have mean that people believe in it. People think it's a really good thing, you know, and by developing some of those partnerships and getting support from all sorts of people. Essentially what I'm saying is there's an awful lot of people that we haven't paid for a long time and then eventually have. And if it wasn't for those people, we would still wouldn't be here.
Yeah. Well, I think don't be too hard on yourself, because you hit the head, you know, it is important. The arts are very important because the arts are for everybody. You know, we all need comedy, we all need relief, we all need entertainment, no matter what walk of life you're in. So I would say don't be too hard on yourself there, you know, in terms of saying that it is difficult, because we all know obviously it's been a tricky situation in the last sort of 5 or 10 years for arts organizations in general, because there's not a lot of grants and money floating around. So fantastic that you keep, you know, you're still spinning after 27 long years, Geoff. Well done.
Oh, thank you. It's yeah, I mean, I think you're right, and I think it is a long. I don't know whether this is right or not. I think we are one of the longest running independent festivals in the country. So what I mean by that is we're not run by a local authority. We're not run by a venue. We're not run by a sort of corporate machine. It's just Big Difference Company, as say a registered charity that runs the thing. I think 27 years is one of the longest. So yeah, I'm enormously proud of what we've achieved and hopefully what we will continue to achieve.
Fantastic. And how much do you think the longevity of the festival has to do with Leicester as a city? Do you think that fact it is Leicester has enabled that? Because I find Leicester a very special place for creativity and collaboration, and a lot of the people I know are very sort of open-minded and forward-thinking and quite entrepreneurial, to be honest. There's a lot of people, graduates coming through that want to start their own business and things like that. Would you say that's fair? Leicester has kind of allowed that situation to happen, allowed it to kind of keep spinning and keep going as an independent, I would say. It hasn't been bought out or the idea has been purchased by a bigger beast, and, you know.
Yeah. Well, I might give you a slightly odd answer to that question. I think we definitely benefited from when we set the festival up in 1994. Leicester was nobody knew where Leicester was. It had a bit of a reputation for writing and session musicians, and places like the Haymarket Theatre and the old Phoenix Arts Centre had good national reputations, but it was hardly a cultural destination. And so I think in those early years we benefited from the fact that there wasn't much else happening in Leicester. And this thing that we did every February was exciting and had famous people and got in the national newspapers and people liked it. Now, I'm not saying that to criticise anybody else that was doing anything else in Leicester at that time, but I do know from friends and colleagues in, say, Manchester or Brighton or Bristol, and they struggle to make a noise about what they're creating because there is so much other noise in those cities. And frankly, I think in Leicester for a long time, particularly in terms of festivals, we were the only noise in town, and therefore we were the loudest noise because there wasn't any other noise being created. So I think we benefited from that point of view. And I think, I think we probably have benefited from an entrepreneurial spirit in the city and a creative spirit in the city. And I do think, you mentioned it, I think, and I've experienced, and other people say, Leicester does partnership in a very different way to other places. And it is very collaborative. And, I mentioned earlier on about money, and, sometimes not being able to pay people. And of course, people want their money, but they kind of understand the greater good. And they kind of understand what we were trying to achieve with the festival. The Comedy Festival is not just about great comedy. It is about great comedy, but it's also about loads of other things as well. And I think people get that. And now, I mean, God, you can't compare Leicester now with Leicester 27 years ago. I mean, it is unrecognisable in the amount of creative industries and cultural output there is. And I think what's exciting about that is the amount of sort of independent grassroots stuff that just appears alongside some of the more established mainstream, is that the right word, stuff that's put out in the city. So I don't know whether that answers your question or not. But
yeah, no, good. It's just interesting to explore whether we were on the same wavelength in terms of Leicester as a city. No, that's good. Talking about the Big Difference Company, then, are you a charity or a community interest company? What are you a?
Yeah, so it's a registered charity. So I can tell you a bit about why that exists. And
I was going to ask if that was the company formed as a vehicle for the festival because the festival started to get bigger, or was it formed because there was the festival plus other ideas floating around that you wanted to pursue? Tell us a little bit about why the Big Difference Company formed and what it's used for.
Yeah, so we originally, the name of the company behind the festival was called Leicester Comedy Festival Limited, which, when you're running a festival of comedy in Leicester, is probably a brilliant name for the company, if not the only name that you could pick for a company. And so for a long time, we just did the festival and not very much else. And then we started, mainly out of necessity, doing other things. So we still do, but we did quite a lot of what might be called health promotion work, and so using comedy and humour to promote positive health messages to people. And when we were doing those in Leicester, that was fine because people knew who we were, and we sort of developed a bit of a reputation, I suppose. But I would go and sit in public health meetings in York, and the first person would introduce themselves as the director of public health, and then the next person would introduce themselves as something else, and something else, and something else. And then I'd sit there and I'd have to say, I'm Geoff, and I'm the director of Leicester Comedy Festival. And they would be very confused. They would think I was in the wrong place and the wrong meeting. So we knew that we had to have a different brand, I suppose. And I suppose the other thing, hoping that nobody from the Charities Commission is watching this, but we wanted to become a charity, and we were turned down 3 times when we were called Leicester Comedy Festival Limited. And I think it was because of the word comedy and the connotations that still exist, I think, in this country, that comedy and humour are mainly, if not purely, a commercial thing. So we were turned down 3 times by the Charities Commission, and we changed our name, and we had a new brand, and we were accepted by the Charities Commission the first time. So it was mainly because we wanted, out of necessity, to do other projects to earn money. and being called Leicester Comedy Festival, you're pretty limited to doing one thing. So that's why it sort of morphed into Big Difference Company, I suppose.
Yeah, fabulous. It's not too dissimilar to. Have you attended Creative Coffee before? Have you been to one of our Creative Coffee sessions?
I haven't. I do know it exists, but I have not attended, I'm afraid.
No, that's fine. It's obviously been going for a very, very long time. It's been going for about 11 or 12 years now, in some form or another. And myself and a colleague, and more recently a few others, have kind of been keeping it spinning for the last sort of 6 or 7 years or so. But I formed last October a community interest company called Creative Company Leicester. Other than kind of get the website up and running, I haven't done much with it at the moment, but projects like this and Creative Coffee and a few others are kind of going to all sit under that kind of roof, because I think it gives you more of a platform to, try and apply for funding, try and make things a little bit better. Because without that kind of almost umbrella company, you are a bit of a lost voice trying to apply for things, I think, aren't you?
Yeah, I think so. And I mean, I don't know about you and I don't know about other people, but when we set up Leicester Comedy Festival, our entire focus was around putting on a comedy festival. And the idea of having frankly, of having a business or annual accounts and
around comedy. Yeah,
I'm sorry, say that again.
I say around comedy would probably be an absurd, scenario kind of thing. Yeah.
I mean, I was not very interested in those kind of things. I was really interested in putting on a comedy festival, and then I suppose after about 10 years, we got a grant to do some business development work on our own business, and I absolutely remember the guy who was our consultant kept on saying to me, "What do you do?" And I kept on saying, "Leicester Comedy Festival." And he'd say, "No, but what are the skills? What is the experience? What are the approaches that you bring to your business?" And I'd go, "Leicester Comedy Festival." And you get the idea. This went on for a long time.
Yeah.
And it was only after a period of time where I realized actually what we do is negotiate contracts, we produce events, we liaise with creatives, we do promotion and marketing. Those are the things that we do. The fact that it's Leicester Comedy Festival at the end of the day is the product, if you like.
Yeah.
But I think it's fine not to realize that initially. I think it's absolutely fine to run a business on passion, enthusiasm, and energy, and not much else. I did it with the Comedy Festival for 10 years and possibly more. But I think it's a very useful exercise to go through to actually think, well, what is it actually that I do? What is it that I do on a day-to-day basis? Because then once you identify those, you can identify other things that you could possibly do, either to bring in money or for whatever reason, to develop your business. And, it's a slightly opposite way of normal people would run a business. If you're, I don't know, a mechanic or whatever, you would work out your business and you may not have that passion and energy. But I do think it's important to have that, obviously, within a creative industry. But then over time, you can then figure out what it is you want your business to be.
Yeah, I don't think it's too uncommon, to be fair, to be a creative who has a passion for a certain subject or a certain thing, and you throw yourself into something because you deeply care about it and it's what you love doing, and actually then you build the business off the back of that. And like you've said, over time, you realize the skills, those day-to-day skills that you've been learning just in the background without even realizing you were learning them. And I think that's really interesting, all those things that you said that you've kind of picked up over the years. I guess it leads me to my next question would be is there any big learn? There must have been quite a lot. You must have had so many learning lessons that you've learned, or the do's and don'ts of festival management. Is there a ginormous Bible somewhere that you've pieced together of tips?
Yeah, it's all in the book that I will never write or publish. Well, I don't know whether this answers your question. If you want to know specifically about festivals, there are loads and loads and loads of really terrible festivals. I'm not talking about Leicester. I'm talking in general. And I think festivals are supposed to be festive, almost by definition, and they are tired, dull, repetitive, and not in any way festive. So I do think I do think I've been very, very lucky that I have been able to take not huge risks, but risks with the festival and what we do every February. And I think that ability or opportunity to take risks has massively helped keep the festival festive. So in terms of what you should do, you should take huge amounts of risks. Now that's really easy to say, and it's not easy to do when you don't have loads of money and you've not got huge resources behind you. But it is absolutely critical. Otherwise, your festival just becomes dull and predictable and repetitive, and that's not any good to anybody. So that's what you absolutely should do. And in terms of what you should not do, lessons that I've learned. It's a good question. I think delegation is really important. Building a team of people that you trust and know can do what it is that they want to do and what is necessary to make the festival happen. So I suppose one of the things I'm quite aware of is that because I've been doing this for such a long time, I'm often the spokesperson for the festival, and people, oh, it's Geoff from the Comedy Festival is the phrase that's often used. But there's loads of people. There's probably, if you include all our board of trustees for the charity, there's probably 20 people who work enormously hard on the festival each year. So don't become a megalomaniac and don't think you're the only person that can do it. Delegate to people that you can trust. And I also think the last thing I'll say, I mean, I could talk for ages about this, but the last thing I'd say is don't lie. Okay. We've always managed to have quite a lot of commercial partners and sponsors. They don't bring in a huge amount of money, but we've always had them. And I think it's true to them. It's probably true with everybody, really, is that if you muck up, which you will, don't pretend that you haven't. And just be honest with people. And, if you take risks, you will muck up from time to time. And you just need to fess up and say, yeah, that didn't work, did it? And we didn't put your logo on the right place on the poster, or we didn't give you enough tickets, or in our case, a comedian was very rude about your company when they walked on stage, weren't they? And we didn't know they were going to do that. And so I think it sounds a bit sort of old-fashioned in a way, but don't lie to people. Those are some of the do's and don'ts, I think.
No, good advice. I mean, just it sounds like common sense, not lying. But I think you're right. I think you're right, because obviously, as soon as you tell one little fib or try and hide something, I imagine it can very quickly unravel, and things can go downhill very quickly.
Yeah. Possibly the other things I should say, in the spirit that we're talking about in terms of the bleeding obvious, don't murder, don't break the law, don't go out at the moment. Those are things,
Yeah. But it's so hard. We're all in lockdown. I mean, the urge to kill is so great. No, you mentioned that you're often seen as the spokesman for the festival, just given you kind of one of the founders, and you've been doing so long. Do you ever get anybody sort of saying, "Oh, go on, Geoff, tell us a joke"? Yeah, you must have you must have been asked that countless times.
Yeah, lots of people.
Yeah. Do you have a set of stock responses, or you just don't entertain it?
Well, my standard reply is I pay people to tell jokes for me, which I've used probably too many times in too many years. But no, I mean, I promoted my first concert music gig when I was 13. I never wanted to be a performer. I did perform sometimes in my early days, but I always wanted to be the promoter, the producer, the organizer of the thing.
The puppet master.
The
puppet master, pulling the strings.
Well, maybe. So no, I have never done stand-up comedy. I'm also not a big fan of comedians who also promote, and vice versa. I think they're different skill sets, and I think also I think I'd be terrible at it. No, you won't be seeing me do stand-up any day soon.
No worries. So what's next for the Big Difference Company? And obviously things are having to change and alter a little bit, at the moment. Is there anything in the pipeline that you're still able to work on? Any new projects that are quite exciting at the moment?
We had a really exciting project that we were going to do in Leicester City Centre about 2 weeks ago, which we had to pull, which was a real shame. But hopefully we're going to do it. Well, we will do it at some point in the future. I don't know when. But I'm really excited. I'm not going to tell you what it is, but that is really exciting. To be perfectly honest with you, right now we are trying to figure out what the future might look like, and we're very conscious that quite soon we have to start. Well, we normally would be planning for February 21 for Leicester Comedy Festival. Who knows? I imagine life will be back to somewhere near normal by then, but it may not be. So we're doing that. We've had to shift a lot of stuff that we were going to do this spring and summer to the autumn and into next year. So I'm trying to think of something exciting that we're working on. The honest answer is there is nothing.
There's nothing happening at all.
Yeah, I mean, this time of year for us is normally quite quiet anyway, because I call it the hangover period. So we've sort of done the festival, and in fact, it's the 27th of April today, so we're getting very close to the end of the hangover. March and April are generally the time. We did the award ceremony that we do in March, which this year was a bit mad because we did it all online on Facebook, and that was normally an actual event. So at the moment we're doing all the evaluation and report writing for the festival, and then normally we would put our heads up again in sort of May and June and start thinking about the future, but who knows whether we're going to do that or not. It's an unknown quantity right now.
It's all up in the air. Well, if people want to go find out a little bit more about the festival, Leicester Comedy Festival, and about Big Difference Company, where do we need to head? Where do we need to go?
Well, the festival is comedy-festival.co.uk, and the Big Difference is bigdifferencecompany.co.uk websites. They're the best place. We're on Twitter, and the festival is on Facebook, although Big Difference isn't. And I'm very conscious that certainly the Big Difference Company website needs a massive update, which we should be doing right now, like a lot of people are.
Now's the time, I think, isn't it? Yeah.
But you can get more information from those places.
Fantastic. And before I let you go, I asked you to prep this, didn't I? So if you have a book, a film, a TV show, an app, or a game that you could recommend to people watching or listening during lockdown, what would that be?
Yeah, I forgot about that. Yes, I don't really consume very many of those things ever. Really, I'm a notoriously terrible reader. I don't really like watching films very much and stuff. But anyway, I have just yesterday finished reading Eddie Izzard's autobiography, and I do like reading autobiographies. And it's really interesting how, this is not unusual really, but how, I think the right word to use is insecure he is, and how he thinks nobody really likes him. They just like the stuff that he does. And it's, I think his relationship with his mother, who died when he was very young, and the marathon stuff and all of that, people kind of know quite a lot about Eddie Izzard, I think. But I really enjoyed reading his book, so I would thoroughly recommend reading that if you can get a hold of a copy. Or if you can't, contact me and well, no, I can't post it to you, can I? Because then I have to go to the post office.
Don't worry. We'll stick a link out. I'm sure people will be able to find it on Amazon or maybe on the Kindle store, hopefully.
It's really interesting.
Favorite comedian of the year? I mean, this is not necessarily connected to the awards or to the festival, but someone you've seen that maybe people could check out on YouTube. What's a comedian hot right now that you think is really, really good?
Oh, blimey. I hate this question because there's so many, and I think I like comedians in a very different way to other people do. I think I absolutely love an American comedian, young New York guy called Alex Edelman. He's been to the festival quite a few times. The first time I saw Alex was in Edinburgh several years ago, and he just absolutely blew me away. There's a guy in this year's festival called Will Hodgson, who is from the Southwest. And I think it's fair to say quite a lot of people saw him in the festival this year and thought he was terrible. I think he's a genius, and I stand by that. I think he's fantastic.
But comedy is subjective, isn't it? Or always is.
Yeah.
You know, as an art form, some people like certain types of humor.
Yeah, I'm not the right. Years ago, my brother and his then girlfriend came to the festival and said, we'll go and see something. And I told them to go and see this comedian who I absolutely loved. And they came out of the show. I didn't see the show with them. I was doing something else. They came out of the show and they looked terrible. And I said, well, what did you think? And they said, yeah, it was awful. And I said, really? And they said, yeah, it was terrible. Was that a comedy show in the comedy festival? And I went, yeah. Did you really like that? And they absolutely hated it. And I still thought it was a fantastic show. So I'm not the right person to recommend comedy shows. But Alex and Will Hodgson, there's probably loads and loads more, but they are, I think, fantastic comedians.
Fantastic. Well, I'll try and look them up and we'll get some links out when I put the video up. Geoff, thanks very much for speaking to me today. Good luck with the future. Good luck with the Big Difference Company. Hopefully next year, 2021, we have another Leicester Comedy Festival, because we all need a bit. We all need laughter and we all need joy. So fingers crossed. And thank you very much. Take care of yourself.
All right, Lee. And you. Take care.
See ya. Bye.